Today's guest is Lisa Rooney, who combines her training as a life coach, somatic healer, and homeopath all in one to create transformative healing for her clients. After speaking with Lisa today, I can really see how life coaching combines beautifully with homeopathy, and I even had a bit of an aha moment myself as we were chatting about values. You can find Lisa at vibrantlife247.com, and she's also on Vibrant Life 247 on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can schedule a free discovery call with Lisa, and if you mention you heard her on my podcast, she will give you a $100 discount off either a Total Vibrancy coaching package or her homeopathic consults package. So be sure to check out vibrantlife247.com. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we get to hang out with the lovely Lisa Rooney. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you find homeopathy? Or how did it find you?
I really came into natural living in my early 20s. I had gotten very sick. I had chronic fatigue syndrome and chronic candida infections. And at my worst, I was sleeping about 17 hours a day. And, modern medicine couldn't figure anything out. I was in and out of the doctor's office trying to figure out what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. And it wasn't until I found a holistic doctor way on the outskirts of town that I actually even got my eyes open to any kind of holistic healing. And back then it wasn't homeopathy, but it was herbs and supplements and food. And so that kind of started my path and my curiosity, because I was amazed. Within getting on this doctor's dietary and supplement program, within 2 weeks, I regained 80% of my energy. And I was stunned. So it really ignited this curiosity on what is this all about? Fast forward, then I met my husband, and then I had my children, and it didn't make any sense for me to go back to, the way we were supposed to be raising children. And so I just kind of went on from there. I raised my children very holistically, very, very little medical intervention. And somewhere along the way, homeopathy came in. But I think my kids were just maybe a couple of years old. My oldest was maybe a couple of years old. And I bought my first homeopathic kit, and I didn't have any idea how to use it. I didn't know what to do. I just had this little pamphlet, and I was looking, and I was trying to match symptoms, and I didn't have a lot of success. So I put homeopathy to the side, and I would get a remedy here, arnica, here and there. But it wasn't until fast forward about a decade, and I had continued to dabble in homeopathy. I had met with some girlfriends for about 2 years, where we met with a homeopath once a month, and we kind of went through remedies and everything. But even that, I still didn't feel like I got it. And fast forward about 10 years, I came across Joette Calabrese and her work with the energy protocols. And so I started studying some of her methods, and wow, that just kind of opened everything up to me. And, at that point, I had studied every other healing modality that you could possibly think of. Everything out there. I'd tried every diet plan. I had, all the energy-based medicine, just everything. And so it was really time, I think, for homeopathy to come into my life. And from there, I just started having doing some study groups. I joined forces with a girlfriend of mine, and we started a company, and we did that for a handful of years. And, just kind of taught people how to use homeopathy, mostly women. Over the years, kind of got the certifications and took the classes and studied with all of the different people. And now here I am.
Amazing. And you kind of hinted to it, but you've got a background in coaching and a few other things as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I do, actually. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I actually have been a coach for maybe 15 years, more than 15 years. So when my kids were young, because I was raising them holistically, I really wanted people around me. I'm kind of an extrovert. I believe very much in community and raising our children in community. And so back then, my kids are 19 and 21. So that's, 20 years ago. Back then, there there wasn't a lot of people that were raising their kids the way I was. And so I started this Holistic Moms group. It was a local chapter of the national organization, the Holistic Moms Network, which unfortunately just closed down this past year. They had been running for 20 years. But through there, I just kept getting people coming saying, wow, do you coach people? You should really do this. You should really do this. And at one point, I knew that one day I was going to go back to work. I was lucky enough to be home with my kids, and one day I wanted to go back to work. My background was in technology, and I didn't want to go back into that industry. So, one day my husband says to me, well, maybe you should get a life coach. And I'm like, I don't need a life coach. I can figure my own life out. And he's like, no, 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 no. When I'm struggling with business, I get a business coach. You're trying to figure out what things are going to look like. Let's get you a life coach. And I tried it and it was amazing. And she really inspired me to go ahead and get my own, coaching certification. And so that's what I did. And I really, coaching and homeopathy was very separate for me for many, many, many years. It wasn't until I actually incorporated homeopathy into my coaching practice, I was that far my clients started going, and much more quickly. It was like the synergy between the two of them was extraordinary.
So what does that actually look like? I'm just trying to figure out in my head, like, how would you do that?
So what does it look like when somebody works with me?
Yeah. So typically, how do you incorporate the two?
Yeah. So, and it literally took me about 2 years to really figure out how to do it seamlessly. So, I call that kind of like my unique methodology. All right. So when I start working with a client, I don't coach all of my clients. Some clients really just need homeopathic help. That's all they're interested in. I might be working with younger kids who aren't necessarily candidates for coaching, or, they might, the clients might be with a therapist or whatever. And so they don't really need the coaching. But when I'm working with someone, which is most of my clients, I really are within my coach program. So we identify what their top maybe 3 to 5 focus areas that they want to focus on. We do a homeopathic assessment, usually within the first or second session that I have with them. And then I determine what remedies are going to help their healing process. So I'm really looking at them through kind of the lens of what we call the 3 T's: trauma, toxicity, and thoughts. And that is a homeopathic concept out of the College of Practical Homeopathy, which I am I'm part of. And it's also very much aligned with coaching and the way in which I did a lot of my coaching and how I was trained as a coach. So once we kind of get the homeopathic assessment done and I get them on the remedies that are going to help support, kind of be that foundational support as we're working, then we really dive into what are your values? How are you living according to your values? What are your traumas? Where are your thoughts? Where are, the limiting beliefs? And as I work with them throughout the course of the package, I usually meet with my clients twice a month. And the homeopathic remedies are working in the background. And how these beautiful little, remedies can loosen the hold of things. And all of a sudden things start coming up that our clients didn't even, that maybe they haven't thought of or they haven't dealt with in a while. Coaching provides that container for them to then work through it. And that's one of the things that I love about it, because I feel like we are in this society of suppressors. Like we always suppress things. Pharmaceuticals suppress things. Society as a whole tells us that we can't be angry. We can't be, we can't freak out about something. We can't dislike something. And so we're always sucking it back in. And when the remedies help to loosen the hold, I love that coaching provides that container for them to then work through it.
And do you tend to do that as a package? So they purchase a package and then you work with them through that, or how do you do that?
I do, yes. They will purchase a package with me. So I usually work with people for about 6 months, or at least my packages are 6 months. Sometimes I work with them a lot. And the reason for that is I used to just do 3-month packages as a coach. And what I found was they would make all these great changes within about 3 months. And then you hit the 4th month and the 5th month, and they start sliding backwards. And so then by the 6th months or the 8th month, they were calling me back and wanting to coach with me again. And so when I extended those packages out to 6 months, that really helps kind of get through all of the different phases. And yeah, we just, whatever kind of comes up in the sessions, I hold a very distinct umbrella. That's why I kind of get really clear on what their 3 to 5 things are that they want to focus on. But the experiences they have in their life is what really kind of guides our coaching sessions. And a
I was
key
going to
element of
ask
that.
you, because that probably changes. Like you might start out thinking these are your main 3 things, and then that's probably going to change as the remedies are like bringing things up.
Yeah, it definitely does. Sometimes it does change. And I'll tell you what really brings things into focus for people is when we do the values-based work. So I spend a couple of sessions really getting them clear on what are their deeply held core values. And it's surprising to people because we all think that we have these values about what we should think, the things that should be important in our lives. And when we really get into the values, these are the things that are not dictated by society, not dictated by our family of origin, not even dictated by our partners. These are the things that are so deeply held within us that when we are in alignment with it, everything works. When we are out of alignment with it, there's anxiety, there's irritation, there's frustration. I know that when I'm out of alignment with my values, I'm like ready to I need to sell the house. We need to move. Nothing is working. And it's really funny to me when I start feeling that way. I'm like, oh, okay, where am I not aligned with my values? And so when clients get really clear about that, it helps them then say yes to this, say no to that, and really brings out the courage, especially with women, this courage to do boundaries and get vision and kind of focus on where they want to go in their lives.
Oh, that's beautiful. As you were talking, I was just thinking, I wonder I've done these exercises before. I just haven't kind of tuned into it for a little while, but I was just thinking, what would be my highest value? And actually, as I'm sitting here in the caravan, like I'm all squished up here in a little corner because, I haven't got a recording studio today, but I'm like, yeah, it's freedom. It's being able to do what I want when I want to do it. I think that would be one of my highest values. Yeah.
That is actually my number one value.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
It really is. And
don't tell me what to do or when to do it.
Yeah. And when I discovered it, I was working with my life coach at the time that I discovered it. So this was, 20 years ago. And I'm like, no, freedom is not my top value. My family is my top value. This is my top value. And she's like, no, Lisa, freedom is your value. It's the top one. Because when you're aligned with that, all of the other things make sense.
That's what I'm
And
thinking
she's
is
right.
it's so inconvenient, sitting here, all squished up. And this table is so small. I was telling you before we were recording, I'm just hoping nothing falls off the table and the family's probably going to come in after they've just gone fishing. But when it's your value, it doesn't, these things are not actually a big thing. It's, I'm sitting here, my back's a bit sore. I've got a towel behind me and, squished up and, dressed nicely on the top and just, pajama pants on the bottom because it's Zoom, right? But because it's my value and I'm aligned with it, none of these things actually matter. And so when you are living in alignment with those values, all the side bits are just, it's so much easier. Whereas if this wasn't a value, if freedom wasn't a value of mine, I wouldn't care about that as much, then all of this would be a struggle. And I would be that's what I'm understanding. What you're saying is that if you're living according to your values, even if there's hard times or there's waves or there's whatever, you can breeze through it easier because you're doing what is of highest value to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I go through a process of helping my clients really identify what those different values are. And it is very specific and very individual to each client. The process that we go through is very individual to each of them. How we discover them, I have kind of a general process that I use, but the conversations and the aha moments and the realizations is very, very individual. Just like the remedies that I get my clients on to help support the work that we're doing is very, very individualized. And, it's actually probably one of my most favorite things to do is to really work through the values with my clients.
I was wondering about that because I don't know, people are always asking me about this homeopathic school and that. And I'm like, I don't really know because the only one that I've ever done my professional development with has been CHE for since 2019. And I studied, 15 years ago. So it's hard for me when people are asking me, but I've heard of Joette's school and she's obviously been on the podcast, but I wasn't sure if it's just protocols that they're teaching you. So when you were just saying about like an individualized approach, I was wondering, do they do classical, would you give a classical remedy or would you use a protocol with the coaching or how would you do that?
Yeah. So my method is really, I use multi-method.
Okay.
So I've studied with Joette and the Banerjee protocols. I've studied Robin Murphy's.
Oh.
I'm currently in the CPH program. And so I really it's very individualized.
Okay.
I have a lot of clients that come to me who have had quite a bit of trauma in their history. Maybe, abuse in their childhood or maybe, currently in abusive relationships. And so the way that shows up and the way people experience that is very, very different. And so for me, I'm looking at what's going on with, that's kind of the thoughts, what's going on, their trauma and their thoughts, and where are their thoughts, and what remedies do we need to get them on, or combination of remedies do we need to get them on in order to handle that, that trauma and that thought. But then we're also listening to what's going on with the body. What is the body telling us? Is their gut disordered? Are they having, arthritis? And how does that marry up to homeopathic miasms and Chinese 5-element theory? And really what the body is telling us, that really where the emotions are. And so sometimes that means, hey, this Banerjee protocol is going to be really good. And the Banerjee protocol, they have a great protocol for mental, kind of shock. They have a great protocol for shock. It's Kafia and Ignatia. That is oftentimes a protocol that I will get my clients started on until I've had a chance to assess their case. And then we take a look at what else needs to be layered in. So I really just go with what is showing up. I just had a client last week where I was using more kind of CPH methods, and I really had her on a multiple different remedies, one that was handling some organ support, one combination of remedies that was handling the drug toxicity that she had, and then one that was addressing her emotions. But we weren't really getting any movement on some of the gut stuff that was going on. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's just layer this Banerjee protocol in for gut stuff. And it shifted her in 5 days. And so I just feel like as a homeopath and as a coach, because as a coach, you have to be really flexible and move with your clients. Well, for me, as homeopathic consultants, we also have to be flexible and move with our clients. So I try not to get really specific on one specific methodology. And I also think we move through, people are dynamic beings. And so one methodology might work in this scenario or for this person at this period of time. And then another methodology might really be more appropriate because of where they're at in their life. And so I like to move with my clients.
It's good to have lots of tools in the tool belt, right? And Speaking of tools, did you say that you do somatic work as well?
I do some somatic work as well, yes.
What do you do?
Yes. So I usually do, I'm outside of Atlanta in the U.S. If there are local people here and they want to come to my office, they can come to my office. They can get on my table. We can do work there. I do some healing touch-based work, EFT tapping, and just a myriad of other type of modalities. But most of my clients I work with by way of Zoom. And so for their work, I'm doing a lot of visualization. I might be doing tapping. I might be walking them through various other, somatic work is about getting it out of the body, because the trauma or the thought or whatever it is locked into the body. And the way I see it, it's locked into the nervous system. So how do we get that out of the nervous system? It may be something as simple. When you talk about somatic work, it's a very broad definition. And everybody has something a little bit different that they do that brings the somatic work in. So, it just really depends on what it is. I am a lot of my focus is on getting the body in motion so that we can get those traumas out. So I really, really believe in, especially when I'm working with someone who's got that abuse trauma, that brings up a lot of anxiety, a lot of anger. I mean, it can be very explosive. So I'm really encouraging my clients to move their bodies and kind of rage and do what they need to do to pull that energy out of their body.
That's amazing. So maybe just tell us a little bit about, you've got a course coming up as well, right? I think in March?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I am in the process of putting together what I'm calling the Homeopathic Foundations Plus course. And the plus is because, as a mom trying to raise my kids holistically, I wish I had known, I came into homeopathy and I really got good at utilizing homeopathy with my family when they were like in middle school. And oh my gosh, what I wouldn't have loved to have had was all the knowledge that I have now back when my kids were young, back when I was first starting. And so this course is really about pulling together all that information and laying it out there for, it's a newbie, or if you've been kind of studying for a little while, but you want to get dive down a little bit deeper, then, this course would be great for you as well. So it's the plus, because the plus is also, I'm kind of going through the history. We're going to talk a little bit about, how homeopathy came to be. We're going to talk about why it went underground. So we're going to talk, I've got a module that I'm talking about the Flexner report and, kind of what happened to really push it back down underground. I want people to understand, how the remedies are made, how to read what does the potency mean, how to read the labels, all of the nitty gritty stuff, how to dose, when to go to a higher potency, when to stay with a lower potency, all of the details. Plus, I'm going to go through about 50 different remedy profiles and about 25 different conditions. And then the last bonus is all my tips and tricks. So the remedies I carry with me, how I store my remedies, my favorite pharmacies, like all of the tips and tricks that I wish I had had.
Oh, that's amazing. I am so grateful that I found homeopathy before I got pregnant with my kiddies, because I will always say that if I didn't, it would have been a completely different story. It would have been very different. So I was definitely just very, very lucky. And I just wish those of us who do know about homeopathy, we just need to like sprinkle the seeds for all the little younger ones that, are thinking about starting a family. We do need to plant those seeds quite early, I think. How are you delivering the course? Is it like pre-recorded or is it live? Like, I'm just thinking because our listeners are
It's
obviously all over the
pre-recorded.
world.
Yep, it's a pre-recorded course. I think there's 6 modules. I'm still working on the last couple of modules, so there's probably going to be about 6 modules. And, it will be a combination of short videos and a little bit longer videos so that people can kind of go through. There'll definitely be an order to the course, but people can, they can skip around and say, "Oh, I want to watch this module or that module."
Okay. Have you got
So,
a date? Have you got a date set yet? Because I'm just trying to think of when this podcast needs to come out so we can let people know in time.
yeah, my target is March 15th.
Okay, March 15th. Okay, well, you're going to have to do it March 15th now because you've said it on the podcast, right? So
I've said it, so that's it.
you said it, so that's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Do you maybe want to I'm just trying to think of our listeners that maybe want to work with you as well, like with these packages. How do they work and what do you, like, how would
Yeah,
they get in touch with you to get a package?
absolutely. So my website is vibrantlife247.com, as in like 24/7,
Mhm.
or they can find me at Vibrant Life Integrative Coaching. Either one is going to get them to me. And just go to the Work With Me page and it'll show you all of the things that I offer. So I have a what's called a total vibrancy coaching and homeopathic support program. I also offer homeopathic consults. I have a group program that's going to be coming out probably the second half of this year. And then the course that I have coming out as well. And so they can just, kind of take a look, give a read, see what sounds interesting. What I do recommend is that if they want to know more, they want to see whether or not it makes sense for them to work with me, just schedule a discovery call with me. They can do so from my website. It just clicks right to my calendar. Get on my calendar. We'll talk for about 20 or so minutes, figure out what's going on in your life, what you feel like you need help with, and then we can determine which one of my packages works best. And if you mention that you heard me on your podcast, then you'll get $100 off either one of those programs.
Yay! Thank you.
Yay! I would like to
Our
do an offer.
our
A little bit
listeners.
of an incentive.
Yeah,
But, the
absolutely.
discovery call is free, and I love a good conversation. So
That's awesome. Thank you for that discount as well. I think our listeners always appreciate when, there's a little bit of an offer as well if they want to try something out. So that's amazing. Oh, I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that we need to mention, Lisa? I just don't like whenever I have somebody on the podcast, I'm like, oh, I hope there's nothing like that I've missed out that you really wanted to mention. Like, is there any case studies that maybe you want to mention about how you're integrating homeopathy with your coaching or?
yeah, I could tell a couple of stories. That would
Yeah,
be
sure.
great.
That'd be great.
So, probably one of my favorite one. This is probably the one that, I'll say my husband is most proud of. And I don't really get into a lot of details with my husband about my clients and everything like this. But I got a letter from, this was one of my young adult clients. So I work with mostly women who are kind of in their 40s and above. I've worked with a handful of men, but mostly women find their way to me, and they're usually in some kind of transition. And over the last couple of years, I've started working with young adults from a coaching perspective, 14, 16 to about 26. And many of them have been the young adult children of my former clients. So this particular one, she came to me at 17 years old, and she had 4 diagnoses. She had 2 anxiety diagnoses and 2 eating disorder diagnoses. And her parents did not think that she was going to graduate from high school. She had missed so much school because of the anxiety. And it really had kind of started around the COVID timeframe. But of course, once we got into the history, we saw some etiology that really was far earlier than that. But the anxiety was really kind of ruling the house. I mean, it was, the parents were sort of on call to her anxiety. And she was seeing an eating disorder doctor, a nutritionist, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist. So her whole life was really, they were running her around to all these different doctors. And they wanted to put her on a new anti-anxiety med. And Dad was just like, I just feel like all we're doing is spinning our wheels. Well, in this case, he happened to be friends with a former client of mine. And she was like, why don't you call Lisa? You've tried everything else. And so he did. He didn't know anything about homeopathy, no holistic, like nothing. He was just at that point willing to try anything. So he signed her up and we started on a coaching package. And she was very arsenicum. That was like her main remedy. And so we got her on. There were a handful that we had to go through, and we had to get through some toxicity layers as well. But within 4 months, she was undiagnosable. And her parents were stunned. She was back at school. She was going to school every single day. She was very, very far behind. So, with her, we didn't really do the values work until much later in the coaching relationship, because she was just needing support in just some of the day-to-day life things, understanding where her anxiety was coming from. I spent a lot of time helping kind of decouple that like my anxiety, that these young kids, they take ownership of these things. This is my anxiety. And so we had to really decouple that, because it had become a habit of her, to the point where she began to look at the anxiety as a response to what was going on and not part of who she was. So, over the course of time that I work with her, and I'm still working with her, she's now 19, but I only meet with her once a month now. She graduated from high school. And do you know she walked across that stage with her remedies in her pocket?
Oh, that's
Oh,
so
it was
nice.
so beautiful. She sent me a picture, right when she walked across that stage. And I mean, I was just like, oh, bawling. I was so proud of her.
Oh.
She's now in college. She finished up her first semester. She's got clarity because we did the values work on what she wants to study. And the last thing that we were working on was just getting her through some anxiety about getting her driver's license. And she's just about there. So really, that's probably one of my favorite stories.
The groundsman has just come past and has got the leaf blower. I don't know if you can hear it.
I can't hear
You
it,
can't?
no.
Oh, it is this amazing microphone. It just cuts everything out, but he's so loud. It's literally outside our window. That's an incredible story, and it just makes me realize that it would be so incredible. Like, I'm always trying to think, where can we do things to prevent them from happening? Rather than being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, what can we do? What guardrails can we put in so people don't fall off the cliff? And I think one of them really is with our teenagers, and life coaching just sounds like such a great way alongside the homeopathy. It sounds like a no-brainer marriage made in heaven, really, because if you can get a young person clear on what their values are in life, I'm just thinking like many of us adults don't even really know what our values are in life, but if you can get them clear on that at a young
Right.
age alongside homeopathy to just help them breeze through that, because our teenagers have got such a rough time. I'm so glad I grew up without social media as a teenager. I don't know if I could
Oh,
have
me too.
handled it. I mean, we were talking about that before we started, right? Because I was telling you that, the caravan's a mess. I'm just moving things around and like just trying to, like fake it till I make
Yeah.
it. And if you actually saw what a mess this was, you would be completely under no illusion that any of this is glamorous. It's really not. And both of us are saying,
Well, you
we're
should see what's on the floor. You should see what's on the floor.
And that's not the message that our young people are getting. They're getting the message that everything is perfectly curated. And if you're not perfectly curated, there's something wrong with you. And yeah, we need to give them like a beacon in their life that they can hold on to, or like actually not even hold on to, create that beacon within themselves, that they are their own beacon, their own strength. They don't need to go
Mhm.
and seek it outwardly. And I think that's what homeopathy is really good at. But then just supercharged with life coaching, I can really see that this would be of really great value. What is the youngest kind of
Yeah,
age
thank
that you
you.
would do life coaching with?
Probably 14.
Mm,
14 would be the youngest. Not all 14-year-olds are in that space. That's why I do the discovery calls, because I really just assess whether or not, it's the right thing. And if it's not, then we just work homeopathically.
mm,
And then, maybe down the road, they might need some coaching. Not all 17 or 19-year-olds are really in the right space for coaching. So it just kind of depends. But I think, to your point, that story illustrates what I love about the synergy of coaching and homeopathic healing, because as she was working through and the anxiety was starting to loosen its hold on her, she had this container by which we could work through things.
mm,
And so that's what I loved about it. And I really don't know if I had not layered in, prior to layering homeopathy into my practice, it would have taken us a lot longer to get where we got with her, you know? Because I don't, the coaching alone wouldn't have been able to do it, and the homeopathy alone wouldn't have been able to do it. It's just that synergy of the two. But I think, to your point about these teenagers, yes, they are really struggling. These young adults are really struggling. And so, a lot of what I'm always talking to them about is putting the social media aside, giving themselves the time. And it is really, really hard. I think we need to go in through the moms and really give the moms kind of the knowledge and the courage to be able to set some of those boundaries really early on. And I think the tide is starting to shift, because what we are seeing is so destructive with our young children. But there's this pocket of young children that are, they're kind of in that really sort of gray area where, they're already in it. I think the younger mom coming up and they're like, "No, I am not allowing my child to get social media until, whenever it is." Mine didn't get social media until they went to college, and they are so grateful for it. As a matter of fact, my son came home from college, let's see here, was it last summer? I guess would have been last summer, because he's a sophomore now. So he came home from college and he's like, "So, Mom, I'm not saying that I agree with everything you did, but now I understand it." Because he could really see the difference between, those that were parented kind of the kids that were parented the way I parented them, that, where I had very clear boundaries. I had clear boundaries about food. I had clear boundaries about the content that we were consuming. I had very clear boundaries that we spent. And then the kids that didn't grow up with those boundaries, which is one of the things we work on a lot within the coaching perspective, is teaching people how to set and hold those boundaries, because the world doesn't want you to have boundaries.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole podcast just on boundaries.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could.
And I think especially if you can teach these young people like healthy boundaries from a young age. I mean, that's another thing where I think, especially for young girls, if we can set those boundaries from a young age, and it's just such a mess, all of it.
Yeah. And I really didn't, I didn't get into coaching because I wanted to coach, teenagers and young adults. That wasn't really my thing. But I had so many of my clients that were like, please, will you please work with my young adults? And it's been amazing, because they are looking for, they're looking for that direction and that understanding and that clarity, and that, kind of someone outside of their parents that's in their court saying, yeah, you're good. Yeah, let's do this. Yes, let's figure this out. No, you don't have to do, really helping them kind of figure out the direction to go, and how to let go of some of the things that they feel sort of beholden to with all this social media.
Mm-hmm. There's one other thing I wanted to add to what you were saying, when you were saying about you don't know whether you could have done it with just the coaching by itself. And, that's where the homeopathy is helpful. And every single homeopath on the planet will have at least a few stories of a client who has seen a psychologist and a psychotherapist and a counselor and this and that. And then they come to the homeopath and they give them a remedy, and then it helps. And you can say that it was, the psychologists have all done all the pre-work, so the person was ready by the time they came to you, or you can do whatever you want. And I want to make it super clear that all of the different modalities are needed and we can all work together. So I'm not bagging anyone. I just want to highlight that there is something that homeopathy does, because it works on an energetic level, that you can rehash old stories as many times as you want to as many different people. But somehow when you find the right homeopathic remedy that energetically vibrates with that story, it's like the waves that just cancel each other out. And suddenly, like magic, things are just easier. And people come back to you and they'll say, that idea that I had in my mind about my parents having done this to me, or that person at work doing this, I can actually see it from a different perspective now. And like, it happens so seamlessly that it's almost the downfall of homeopathy, because there's no big fanfare when it happens. There's no fireworks going off. It is a gentle little realization, an aha moment, a eureka moment that pops in your mind about, oh, maybe it's not how I thought it was. Maybe it's this way. And that creates that possibility for you to see something from a different way that no amount of talk therapy can ever do. It probably can, but it costs a lot of money and a lot of time. And I'm not saying homeopathy will do this every single time, but I'm just saying, as homeopathic practitioners, we have the privilege of witnessing this in our clinics, where clients will say to us, you gave me a remedy, and you know what? I had just had this thing that popped up in my mind. And they will think that it's just their own, inspiration. And of course it is, but it's the remedy that helps to facilitate the space for that to happen.
Absolutely. Which I think is just so remarkable about, they really are very gentle little healers. And I think it's just remarkable when that happens. And of course, nobody says it was a remedy. Oh, it must have been, the therapy that I did, or it must have been that I changed my diet, or it must have been. But I think, the remedies help. Again, I look at it from the standpoint of how they kind of loosen the hold of all these traumas and all this toxicity and all this stuff that's going on in between us. Just loosens the hold that it has kind of on our nervous system and within our bodies and in our minds, and, allows it to just gently kind of float away.
Beautifully said.
And it is a privilege. It really is. I love it when I'm in a session with someone and, I usually review what we did the last session. And then there's this big change, this big aha moment. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that was that staphysagria, I'm thinking in my mind, that's a staphysagria response, or that's an Ignatia response, or whatever it is. It really is a privilege to witness it.
It really, really is. Well, Lisa, Thank you so much for your time today. I really think that this coaching and homeopathy marriage definitely sounds like a marriage made in heaven. and
Thank you.
yeah, and all the best for your course. And I hope we have lots of listeners reaching out to you and taking advantage of these packages, especially if they're in a transition in their life and they're stuck somewhere and they just need somebody to hold their hand a little bit longer. I do sometimes feel with our homeopathic consultations that it would be good if we had more regular follow-ups, but sometimes with
Mhm.
just more regular follow-ups, it kind of creates that expectation to give the person a new remedy. Whereas if you have
Yeah.
something like coaching, you're not necessarily you're having that regular follow-up, but you know the client doesn't have that expectation that you're going to change their script or give them a new remedy, which is very handy. You were very
Yeah.
smart there. So, and for our listeners, please remember the $100 discount if you mention the Homeopathy Hangout podcast, and you can schedule a free discovery call with Lisa. So just vibrantlife247.com.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be on your show. I have enjoyed listening to all of your interviews, and I look forward to staying connected with you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All the best.